Good morning, everybody, and it's lovely to be here again. And we are recording another recorded conversation for Love Your Image YouTube channel. And this morning, I am joined by Nicky Collins, and Nicky is now an award-winning autism coach. So thank you so much for joining me, Nicky. It's lovely to catch up with you again.
Likewise, and thank you for inviting me on, Penny.
No, I think this is a very kind of special area, really, of that area that you and I cover. So, Nicky, we can kick off straight away. When I first knew you, you were doing something else. You were doing crystals, working with crystals.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I wanted to just ask you what made you decide to do that transition from that to, as you are now, a very successful autism coach?
Well, when I was doing crystals, it was actually through networking for that business. I met someone who, through meeting them, I discovered that I'm autistic. And I'd done a lot of coaching, and even with the crystals, I was doing holistic coaching and helping people to connect with their energy. So a much more spiritual and what other people might say woo-woo kind of approach, which I absolutely love. And I still do that sort of thing within my coaching today. But what I kind of realized is there wasn't a lot of people doing what I do. There wasn't a lot of support for autistic women. And I wanted to be the change that I kind of needed in my younger years. And that's what I branched out into. I'd had a massive background. I mean, I've had a special interest in personal development for about 15 years now. So what I did was take some of those tools that I learned and I tweaked them so that they worked for neurodifferent people. And it's just been a huge success and it continues to grow.
Fabulous. Yeah, no, that, and I can see how that transition would have worked for you. And I think that's probably another one of the connections, your more spiritual side, which is why you and I, you know, talk similar language and understand one another wonderfully well. So, okay, Nicky, autistic people who need to get in front of the camera, or what are some of the more challenging things for people with autism? Or sorry, I must correct that. Autistic people who don't like getting in front of the camera and perhaps need to, or just don't like getting. What are the particular challenges for them?
I remember, because I learned a lot of things from you and getting confidence in front of the camera. And when I first started, it was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences that I had ever experienced. And I was in a room full of people that I knew and trusted and liked. And I also know equally that you can be in your own home in front of a ring light with your phone attached to it, trying to record something and still having that same level of anxiety and nerves. And I think really repetition, and just having a goal in mind. So what are you actually trying to get out of being behind the camera? There needs to be a good reason why, because like many things, if you don't have a good reason why, it's very easy to lose sight of why you're doing it. But if there's a really damn good reason to do it, you're more inclined to work through that fear and that anxiety, and it's perfectly natural. And I think that sometimes just knowing that is a natural instinct, because having a camera in your face isn't something that the majority of people enjoy. There are some people make careers out of it, but
Yeah.
we're not talking about those people.
No, no. Yeah. Oh, that's quite interesting, actually, because it's I know there's a lot of variations of what can affect autistic people with this. And so now, going on from that, you and I worked together at the beginning of last year. Actually, we were still in winter, really. I think it was February last year, and we were in an outdoor location. And yes, you'd probably heard me talk about Love Your Image quite a bit. How was that experience for you, being photographed, in a professional shoot environment, albeit it was outside?
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant, because the way you work is just so natural, and it wasn't in your face. It was very relaxed. It was very laid back, but we still got the most amazing results. And you know that one of my soft spots is my other half. And you brought the things that I love into that environment, although they weren't there actually with us physically. And it was like, look over there and look back and pretend that you're seeing my other half is called Tilly. So look as if you've just seen Tilly. And obviously that brings out a different part of you and puts that across into the images as well. So I think it was just the way you did it was so relaxed. It was so informal, yet formal at the same time. So it was a really good mixture and balance of the two. And it was just, I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it.
That's lovely to hear that you actually enjoyed it, as opposed to it, you know, managing to get through it, so to speak. I personally have always worked with autistic people or not, with the spontaneous, because I feel that that is where people's real genuine expressions lie. It can make my job a little bit more challenging, but that doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
it's very, very much about the communication. And I'll try and get somebody to actually forget the fact I've got this huge, great pro camera pointing at them. And I seem to recall you saying how much, your connection with the outdoors, and that
Yeah.
helped.
Yeah, it does. And nature's always been my happy place. And I think that's true for a lot of autistic individuals as well. And sometimes actually we think that maybe we don't like the outdoors as much because of all the different sensory inputs that are around. So you can't control the weather, you can't control the wind. And if, like, I used to have longer hair, which is an anomaly for me. I very much like my short hair because it's sensory friendly. But if I was in outside in nature and the wind goes and my hair goes, you're not in control of that. So I think a lot of people think that actually being outside, they're allergic to it, but they're not. So if you can
Yeah.
get past those issues. And I mean, when we go back to our photo shoot when we was outside, we used a lot of like natural props as well, like the trees. And
Oh, they were fabulous, weren't they, Dawn and Walks? Because they're constantly making new carvings and new things. That whole tree, that area where we were you were leaning up against the tree trunk. That's all been turned. That's been turned into a huge kind of like picnic table area.
oh wow.
So it's still that sort of clearing. I must go back there again soon. I haven't been there lately, but yeah, and some of their wood carvings are lovely, and they're actually perfect for getting people, to sort of connect through those.
Oh no, that's like, it was a lovely area anyway.
Yeah.
I've moved now, so I'm not in the local area to go and have a look. So you have to send me some photos.
Yes, when I get back there. Yes, yes, yeah. But you're not alone with that people liking, an outdoor option, an outdoor shoot option, because they say, well, I connect with the outdoors. And we were very lucky with the weather that day.
We
Yes.
were.
Yeah. It's quite interesting actually, Nikki, because since I worked with you and I've gotten to know you better, and I've learned more about autism and the things that affect people, and also with my connections with the FSB, they are getting very, very much behind supporting neurodiversity in general, and
Good.
that can encompass quite a few things. But I think it certainly makes people sort of stop and think, well, you don't know what affects that person. You're like yourself, you might come and join into a networking meeting and people don't understand perhaps just how challenging that might be for an autistic person, and they're being really quite sort of brave, right through to, and we're talking about functioning adults, who were in their society. I mean, I have a sister-in-law who was CEO at Hamlet, who deal with people with severe autism, and to whatever level they are, she used to support them, being able to bring them into the community and give them some little challenges that they, rise to that. But I appreciate we're getting that's getting off subject slightly. But so what tips would you bring people with autism who need to get in front of the camera, who want to get in front of the camera, but it terrifies them or makes them nervous, whatever reason? What tips would you give those, yeah, to work with?
Well, I think if you start when you're at home, or start with someone that you trust. So I could easily do something like that with my other half, or I know you very well, so it would be something that I could do with you. And as I said before, have a really good reason why you're doing it. And just, I think sometimes because the autistic brain can be a little bit slower to process. And what I mean by that is if you're talking to someone who isn't autistic, the information comes in and then it comes out in verbal form, and there's no delay there. It's like one smooth sort of cycle. When you're autistic, it kind of comes in, goes into a little waiting chamber that no one knows about, and then it comes out when it's good and ready, and no one knows how long that is going to take for it to actually process. So if you make some notes just to keep yourself on track, sometimes just having those like little bullet points so you can just glance down, no one knows that you're glancing down, and you can cut and you can stitch things together if you're making a video rather than a live recording. And it's also okay if you make a mistake, because actually nobody knows that you've made a mistake other than you, unless you start to act as if you've made a mistake and stutter and lose your words. And it's okay just to take a breath. It's okay just to, sometimes we're so scared of that pause and that silence, and it seems like it goes on for ages, but actually it really doesn't. And we don't need to fill that void. We don't need to fill that void.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they're tips, but
No, and in fairness, if I was working with somebody, an autistic person, again, like yourself, I think I would now, I have now an awful lot more knowledge, not only in a speciality of what I do, but a lot more knowledge about autism. So exactly as that, if you see somebody perhaps beginning to get a little anxious, I'm very aware of watching somebody and going, oh, let's just take a little break, or if you feel that's needed and will help them process something, or even talk to them, take the camera down. The continued communication is so important in photography, whether it's just visual or verbal, so yeah, it's, if you see somebody, if it's all flowing, it's wonderful. But if you see somebody struggling, I think, and lots of bits and pieces from yourself have helped me understand that in others a lot more.
Yeah, and I think if it's static camera as well, again, still have a idea of kind of what you want. And being autistic, we like to role play things and have a clear idea of how that's going to go. So ask the questions before you get in front of the photographer.
Yeah.
How does this look? Ask the things that don't have any relevance to the camera.
Yeah.
What's the parking like? Do you know? Because if you can make it as smooth and anxiety free as possible by asking these questions, and there's no such thing as a silly question. The only silly question is one that isn't asked, because then you're left wondering and getting anxious about things that are probably never going to happen. So ask the questions, get enough information in order to be able to kind of paint a picture for yourself in your own head, so that you know the process, so you know what's going to happen on the day. So you're taking some of these unknown elements out of it.
Yeah. And that in turn is very helpful to me, Nicky, because I can, there's that breaks down then being able to work in more specialist areas and always being aware of who you're working with. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Nicky, thank you so much. This has been a little bite-sized insight, I think, to a very, as I say, a very special working area. And I hope it's been helpful to you. Before we go, though, would you like to just give a little bit more about your business? I'd love to hear a little bit more and how you help people. Does that put you on the spot too much?
No, not at all, not at all. So I'm an autism coach, and I work predominantly with autistic women and girls, mostly because I am a woman who didn't know that she was autistic until she was 34. So that is my area of specialty. There's no such thing as female and male autism. There's no such thing as that. Autism is autism. It just affects people in different ways. But females tend to go under the radar because we are able to mask better. So our symptoms, or I say symptoms, our traits don't seem as obvious and as what the medical model would suggest it is. So I have 4 different programs, and they're all essentially to help you to move into a more confident version of yourself. I'm just putting the final touches together on fear to financial freedom. So I think that kind of tells you what that does. We've got Unleash Your Autistic Superpowers, and I've got Autistic Now What, which helps people to gain a diagnosis, whether that's through myself on a more unofficial capacity or an official capacity through another provider. And in November, I've got my first book coming out. So that's 9 stories about autistic women, later diagnosed autistic women, and their journeys through life. And that includes my journey as well. And that's called Through Autistic Eyes. It's on Waterstones.
Yes, I've seen you posting about the book. Of course, that's absolutely wonderful. What I'll do then, Nicky, is obviously when this recorded conversation goes up on YouTube, I will put obviously your contact details. I'll try and add a link obviously to your book as well.
Perfect.
Lovely. Nicky, thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat with you. Thank you for joining me, and I hope we will no doubt cross paths again soon.
Thanks, Penny.